Washington.
Baghdad's rejection of the Bush ultimatum means a ground war could start at any moment. This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. Everything apparently is in place tonight for a ground war of epic proportion in the Persian Gulf. David Martin, our Pentagon correspondent, reports the president has already given commanders in the field the authority they need to move into Iraq and Kuwait. Let's go to David now for the details. David?
Bob, even before the noon deadline expired, President Bush had issued the order to launch a ground offensive if Iraq failed to comply with the terms of his ultimatum for an immediate and unconditional withdrawal from Kuwait. Now that the deadline has expired, the timing of the offensive is up to General Norman Schwarzkopf, the commander in the field. And that means it could come literally at any moment.
What would affect the timing?
A number of things, from the readiness of Allied forces to the state of the Iraqi army down to the weather. Today, the Central Command issued new estimates of the number of tanks, armored personnel carriers, and artillery that have been destroyed by the past 38 days of bombing. And taken together, they show that about 40% of the Iraqi armored forces in the Kuwaiti theater have been destroyed. Now we have these reports that Iraq has started a scorched earth campaign, setting oil wells on fire and executing civilians. And that has got to lend a new urgency to the liberation of Kuwait. Before, the longer Schwarzkopf waited, the more time there was for the Allied air forces to bomb the Iraqi army into submission. Now, the longer Schwarzkopf waits, the less there will be to liberate.
And David, I want to make sure we're absolutely clear about what you're saying. You're saying now that a ground war is inevitable?
It is inevitable. The commander-in-chief always has the authority, if something extraordinary happens, to rescind that order. But the order has gone out, and it is now a matter of timing.
All right. Thank you, David. Before and after the deadline, the Soviet Union tried today to reconcile U.S. and Soviet conditions for a peaceful end to the crisis. Wyatt Andrews is at the White House now with more on that. Wyatt?
Bob, the president today brushed aside a personal appeal from Mikhail Gorbachev and stuck to the United States' drop-dead ultimatum for Saddam Hussein to leave Kuwait by noon today. And while the White House is trying to keep secret the exact timing of the ground war, certainly to keep up the pressure, a White House official said flatly today that a ground offensive could begin at any time.
Right at the noon deadline, the Soviets at the United Nations tried to broker a deal for the Iraqis by claiming Iraq's foreign minister had reacted positively to the American demands. But when that went nowhere, the White House reacted vehemently, saying Iraq had shown no military activity which would indicate any withdrawal of troops, and no communication that would suggest a willingness to withdraw. Saddam's only response at noon, the White House said, was to launch another Scud at Israel. Just like yesterday, the president, who is now at Camp David, took a lengthy phone call from Mikhail Gorbachev, but turned down Gorbachev's appeal to delay the ground war in the hopes the Iraqis might come around. No hard feelings here, Gorbachev's spokesman seemed to say. The Soviets will not burn relations with the U.S. over Saddam.
The sweet words of diplomacy, though, covered up what actually became something of a telephone war between President Bush and Mikhail Gorbachev, in which Gorbachev tried to sell the Soviet peace plan to the coalition allies and lost. That the Soviets are for now, though, apparently losing this showdown gracefully gives the president's ultimatum unprecedented political force. Bob?
Thank you, Wyatt. CBS News correspondent Betsy Aaron was in Baghdad today during one of the heaviest air bombardments of the war. Just a short time ago, with an Iraqi censor at her side, Betsy described for us the scene.
There was a very heavy bombardment as the deadline came. In fact, the bombardment started before the deadline came. Very, very heavy. First sirens, and then you saw tracers, and then you heard bombs very close to where we are. And then it stopped. And right now it's pretty